Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a look at the 2022 film Firestarter. This is episode 369. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead, and that means something in this case because this movie is in the theaters right now. It's new to Peacock. So really seriously, if you want to see it before hearing us talk about it, hit pause, go watch the movie, come back. All right, from Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
I normally will say a quotable quote from the film we just watched, but I don't think there were any good lines in this movie, so I will just say hi.
Bam! Wow. Right off the bat.
Fired.
You could roll your eyes and say, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah. Well, I debated that, but that would presume that I like that line. But I digress.
I have a feeling I like this movie better than you guys, but that was actually not that strong a line. Considering that it's supposed to be like the big payoff, I
want to get into that later, but
yeah. And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello, and I think you could have gone with "I'm not special, I'm a monster." That would have worked.
Ooh. Yeah, fair.
You guys are going to have to tell me, even though we're going to do the original Firestarter next week, you're going to have to tell me along the way a little bit about what's different. Like, you know, like were the parents X-Men in the original, or is that all new? Like, there's so much I want to know. So, okay. Firestarter is a 2022 American science fiction horror film directed by Keith Thomas from a screenplay by Scott Teems based on the novel of the same name by Stephen King. It stars Zac Efron, Kiera Armstrong, Sidney Lemmon, Kurtwood Smith, Gloria Reuben, produced by Jason Blum and Akiva Goldsman. That's like the guy behind all the new Star Trek series right now under the Blumhouse Productions banner. And it was released May 13th. So just a few days ago, and you can catch it in the theaters or on Peacock. And people have had mixed responses to this film. And a lot of people, it's because they fondly remember the 1984 film, which I have not seen, but we're going to be discussing in the next episode. So let's get our opening thoughts. Drew, you are back. Let's do make it Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go if I have anything to add to all that. Drew, what are your opening thoughts about Firestarter?
Oh man,
I have to say it like that because of the Prodigy song. I just can't not.
I mean, we were Jamie and I were making that joke through the whole movie. So I mean, where to start? First of all, I want to say I actually was primed and ready to like this movie on its own merits because I did read the book when I was in junior high, but I don't remember it that well. It's not a King thing that I am super nostalgic about, and in fact, it's probably been 25 years or more since I've seen the original Firestarter movie. Like the main thing I remember about it is actually, appropriately enough, what you just said, is it always sort of felt like Stephen King's take on the X-Men. But it's not something like it or Salem's Lot or even The Stand. It's not something that I hold really closely to my heart. So I just want to state from the get-go that everything that I'm about to say is not hinged on me having nostalgia goggles for Firestarter in general. That's not what motivated me here. What I deeply did not like this movie, mostly because of what felt like editing choices. This movie felt very choppy to me. Like there was like a lot of necessary scenes that would have created more tension that had been removed to have a shorter runtime. It also had some really poor choices as far as like the way they would just give like close-ups of characters' faces, particularly the girl playing Charlie.
Mhm.
It, it, whenever anybody was using their powers, it just kind of looked cheesy. I do think some of the performances were you know, Efron is decent in the movie. The young girl playing Charlie is fine. Kudos for them for actually getting an actual Native American to play Rainbird this time.
Mhm.
You know, it's not the most awful thing I've ever seen. It just seems like a missed opportunity largely, and it just never comes together particularly well. Like, so, you know, while not being the worst movie I've ever seen, like, it's definitely not a movie that I thought was very good. That all being said, um I do think that the score by Castle of Horror hero John Carpenter was excellent. So,
Yeah.
you know, there was that. That was easily the best thing about it. But yeah, I thought this movie was, dare I say, a misfire.
Well, you know, I'm real. By the way, before I respond to any of that, and I'll do that when it's my turn. John Carpenter did the music. That's the weirdest thing. Like, it just doesn't seem like John Carpenter is. Doesn't seem like one of those guys. You're like, oh, hey, we're doing Firestarter. You want to contribute a score? I mean, that it's wild to me that John Carpenter does, you know, just does scores when asked. I mean, it's cool, but how unusual. It was good though. Okay, choppy, deeply did not like. That's those are strong words. Julia, what about you?
Well, I definitely liked it a lot more than Drew did. I enjoyed it. It's, you know, it's not a super fast moving film, and I definitely think that there's some things that were missing that would have made it a lot better. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I liked the little girl a lot. I thought she was great. I thought Zac Efron was great. I like the relationships between. I like the relationship between the dad and the kid, and I thought some of the effects were really cool. Some of them were kind of hokey, I agree, but some of them were pretty good. And you know, mostly I think I just got really into the idea of, because again, I come at a lot of these movies as a parent, so I think I got really deeply into the mindset of what would it be like to be the parent of a child with this particular
Mm.
affliction, as it were. And you know, just the whole thing of like the superpowers and all. I don't know, I liked, and I also had the book when I was a kid. I don't remember it, so I don't, I feel like I read it, but I don't remember it, so maybe it was just around and I didn't read it, but I think I did. Because I have like very small images of like having read it. So I think there probably is a little bit of nostalgia there as well. But I thought the kid was great. I thought she was really good, and I liked Zac Efron a lot, and I liked a lot of the other characters. Um, and you know, there's a few things that I thought were problematic in the story, and we'll talk about them as we go through. And then yeah, the score was great too. So I definitely liked it a lot more than Drew did. It's probably a movie I won't remember in 2 weeks, but I enjoyed it.
Wonderful, thank you. Tony, what about you? Are you anywhere in there, or are you over with Drew, or
No,
what?
Rain and I watched the movie actually fairly recently, the
Mhm.
first one, and we came at this one kind of quick. So I kind of wish I would have reread the novel, because it's been probably as long as Drew had, like that. I wanted to, and then I didn't have time at all this
Mhm.
week. So I wish I had done that so I could compare the original film to the novel a little bit and then extrapolate from there. I found this movie to be a lot more mean spirited in general. I think
Mm.
it's kind of the Blumhouse, like making it more horror, which isn't necessarily bad, because I mean, it's pretty horrific to have a child who can, you know, I mean, that's a horrific, like when you get more realistic about it, it's not like the X-Men comics. It's, you know, burning somebody alive is horrific.
Mhm. Yeah.
Somebody burning alive is horrific. But I think that just the way the tone of it is, I don't know, it's all over the place. I really like the actor who plays Rainbird. I think I've seen him
Yeah.
in, you know, several things, and he's great. I think the choices that they made are, I don't know, it doesn't really, I didn't really like this movie in the aggregate. I think there are some great performances in it, and I think that the cast is pretty good. But how it's put together and how it's kind of rearranged and some of the choices they made, I don't know. I mean, you don't want to make a shot for shot remake of something,
Right.
but it's in parts it's even further from the book, and that's weirder to me. Like, to me, you go back to the source, but they didn't even go back as much to the source in places. And there's lots of just, I don't know, lots of really like gotta make it dark kind of choices that I don't know. It didn't, I don't know. By the end it didn't really work for me. So
All right. Well, we can talk about that. So my takeaway, the funny thing is, I didn't see the original one in the 80s, which is a shock to me, but there it is. This felt to me like an old movie. This is a good thing, by the way. I overall enjoyed it. So to me, and I'll say in general, most things like for instance, when I think of a movie that's very, very poorly edited, I think of The Island of Dr. Moreau, where there are moments when a scene will just sort of chop off and then suddenly you're somewhere else, and it really truly feels bizarre. And I didn't really get that impression here, except for once in this movie where I was like, wow, that was a really weird cut. Like, it would have been good to go back and pick up some more footage or something. But generally, this movie felt like the kind of mid-budget Stephen King thriller that I would go to the movies to see in college, in the 90s. It really felt like it's a small movie. And I
But
like that. I mean, I'm like,
thinner or something.
yeah, all that Thinner and Dolores Claiborne and all those movies of that era where, it's not a very giant cast and there's some special effects, but not too much. I love that stuff. To me, I've been, really nostalgic lately and aching for movies that are not very big. And so this I liked, so that worked for me. I didn't feel like anybody was turning in an amateurish performance. So, for me, the film was fine. But
Well,
there
you'll
is
note my criticisms were not of the acting.
right. No, I'm with you. um, I, as we go through, we might find Tony said that he caught a nastiness to the movie that was kind of uncalled for. And I know that I felt that before, like when we were watching Tales from the Crypt, the 1970s one. I was like, on reflection, watching this is a way nastier movie than I remembered it being. Where nobody has a happy ending, things don't pay off all that well. It's kind of belligerent and gross. There are places here. I think you could fairly read this movie that way. Especially when you get to the ending, which I think a lot of people will just straight up reject. So why don't we just start like working our way through it? Well, actually, before we do, so this movie just came out. This is Firestarter, the 2022. So Jeffrey Reddick, the guy who created Final Destination, he's on Twitter, and I follow him on Twitter, and he said something like, "Hey guys, there's a Firestarter movie coming out starring Zac Efron like next week, and nobody's talking about it." Is that true? Like, have you gotten the impression that this movie has just been sort of snuck out?
It didn't feel like there was a large amount of enthusiasm for it, and admittedly, like, we're kind of in our third wave of Stephen King adaptation, so maybe people are just a little over it at this point. But I also think it was like Firestarter is not, it's not one of the big King
Yes.
properties. Like, it's not it's not The Stand, it's not The Gunslinger, it's not
Right.
it's not any of those things. It's more on the lines of like Cujo, where there is like an awareness of it, but you wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's like the top tier King that like people are just like
Or Pet
slathering
Cemetery.
yeah.
And look how hard it is actually to get people to pay attention to, well, anything. Let's be honest. It's hard and expensive to get people to pay attention to anything. But,
Well, it
you've
also came out the same weekend, like, or the weekend after the new Doctor Strange movie, which
Right.
probably did not help box office chances.
No, yeah. It's so funny, and this is also one thing that's different from even like the last Stephen King remakes. Which came out pre-pandemic. We are now in a universe where a movie like this comes out both on the big screen, and it's sometimes it looks like a TV movie because they're like hanging out on the side of a road in Canada, right? But it doesn't look like a TV movie. It's clearly a theatrical film, and it comes out on a theatrical film. But you guys got to watch it on Peacock, and that's how most people will probably, honestly, that's how most people will watch this movie. That's a new thing. I mean, I feel like we've been doing this show for 10 years. I feel like the world has literally shifted and realigned itself while we've been talking. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I know.
And I like having the option of not going to the theater because I wouldn't I'll be honest, I wouldn't have paid to go see this in the movie theater.
I understand. Yeah.
But like it is the sort of thing that, if it crops up on streaming, I'm more likely to take a chance on it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It does that sort of TV movie feel, though, like, did make me wonder, like, how it would look blown up on a big screen, like if it would look because, like, I watched the new Halloween movie
Yeah.
on Peacock as well, but never once did I feel like I was watching a television
movie.
a made for TV movie. Like, it felt like I was watching a big budget, or moderately budget, or big budget for a horror film.
Right.
And this felt smaller than that.
It definitely felt smaller, but it does not look like, like when we did and that one of the most wonderful experiences when we did the Carrie series, we actually spent time and talked even about like the television remake of Carrie. And this, what that looks like, and this doesn't look like that. So it does definitely look like a film shot at a mid-sized budget, mostly outside in Canada. And that's to me, the funny thing is, we've talked about maybe doing some like the Night Flyer and what. I love that. That's just a visual vocabulary that just calms me. I because I can only watch so many Spider-Mans and Doctor Stranges, which
I
sort of
can watch all of them
blow the
forever.
back wall off and everything. No, I know. But so I'm not at all dissing those things. I love those things. But yeah, I kind of like stuff at about this level too. So anyway, all right. So we open with I kind of wish that people would stop doing this, but we open with a flashback in the form of a dream, which is where
No, I tell you, every time I see this, I'm always like, who dreams memories? Like, nobody dreams memories, but in the movies and TV, everybody dreams memories. It drives me bonkers.
I think that's probably correct. I mean, I don't dream memories, but I
that's not entirely true.
okay.
Well, it's not. I guarantee it's not as often as they do it. Like, it seems like in the
But
movies they only
this
do
is a
that.
post-traumatic stress symptom.
Sure.
Like, and people with post-traumatic stress will sometimes relive
Dreams.
painful memories through dreams.
Fair.
Okay.
All right.
Good
That's
to
an
know.
excellent.
I mean, you're not wrong in saying that it's tropey, but it is plausible.
Well, and you'll hear me be, I'll talk on out of two sides of my mouth when it comes to cliches, because sometimes I just love them. I love, the walking man, wandering down the road at the end of a story. I love that. I don't care how cliched it is.
Well, and in this case, I mean, they do switch it up so that he's suddenly holding the babies on fire, or whatever. So that's obviously not what happened.
So he has a memory that the baby displayed pyrokinetic powers, and so we find that we have a really neat opening credit sequence where the two parents of Charlie is the baby that'll become the little girl who's the star of the movie. The two parents are, and who's playing them? I'm sorry, Zac Efron, and playing the mom is Sydney Lemmon, who's also American. And they're in college and they're being interviewed by Kurtwood Smith, and they're going to take some kind of a test drug that is going to, I guess, unlock psychic powers.
Well, no, it just gives them superpowers. Really, it's like we don't know. Well, that's one of the. Okay, so as we talk about this, we're going to talk about the stuff that's left out of the film.
Oh yeah,
and so there really isn't a good explanation for what they were trying to do with this. Like, what did they expect to happen? What happened with other people? Like, I would have liked to have seen at the end when she unlocks all the cells, other people's powers. Like, what did other people have? And all of that just gets left kind of unexplained.
It's a really good point. Tony, what were you going to
This
say?
is that the credit sequence is done for efficiency.
Yeah.
What is a sequence of, hey, this is what happened. This is how she came about. What happened to the other people in the experiment and stuff is detailed in the other movie, and if I remember correctly in the book. But yeah, this is. I mean, it's if you're gonna cut out things, doing the opening credits sequence the way they did it is actually pretty clever.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, it
Absolutely.
was done really well, but like you said, there's a lot more to that that actually gives some more background. The stuff you're talking about that you
Yeah.
wish was there is actually there in the in the other movie.
book?
But
Oh,
and in the book, because I think they're pretty close. Like I said, I really feel crummy because I really wish I would have read the book again or just had time. I just
Well,
totally
that's cool though,
didn't
because
have
we're
time.
gonna do the other
But
movie next week, so it gives you
I-
time if you want to skim it. a little bit.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's time's the
Sure.
thing you can't get back, and
Sure.
there's a lot going on right now. But I kind of do like just coming at this movie with as much taking the movie as it is, as it's presented, and pretending I don't know anything, even though I'm colored, by the rest of it. So that's different. But I think it was a really efficient choice if you're not gonna spend
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
agree.
time in that. That they did a really good job of having that be the synopsis and leading us in. So that was actually there's kudos to the editors and everybody whose idea it is to like, well, we got to keep this moving, and we don't have a lot of budget to do this whole sequence.
Mhm.
So let's put it in the credits and let's make it this voiceover thing along with like some really nice, clever, video editing. I mean, showing videos of them, their screening and stuff. That was actually
Right.
of the things that I liked about this movie. If you're gonna make that choice, I think that was, it
Yeah,
would have been
'cause
nice
you-
to
That's
see the rest
really
of it,
well
but that
said,
was a pretty good
you
because it
get
is
a
pretty
good
good. Yeah.
you get some good exposition. I mean, like
Sure.
you got like the history of the characters, like the fact that they both had their parents die, and just these
Yeah.
different things like that. So I agree, and I do think it works. It's just that it raised more questions than it answered.
Yeah.
Well, also I wish they would have cast somebody other than Kurtwood Smith as this character, not because I think he's bad or because I don't like him, but because he is so lightly used.
Mm.
And he is such a recognizable actor that I kept thinking like, oh, well, they're going to bring him back. Oh, they're going to bring
Yeah.
him back, and they never do.
Oh, that's
No, they-
shocking.
When
Yeah, we can
They
jump
do.
forward and talk to about Kurtwood because it is a freaking shock that he doesn't walk in at the end and go, "Well, I'm taking this shit back over." What?
Yeah, and when they bring him back, because so he's in the excuse me, he's in the opening credit as the interviewer. So
Yeah.
then they bring him back, and when Gloria
Well, but
Reuben
that's
goes
my
to
whole
visit him.
point. That's the only scene where he's actually on screen. Like,
Right.
they
No,
have
no,
him
no,
as like,
no. I'm saying he was the interviewer. He's the voice at the beginning,
Yes.
and then
I
he's
know
in.
that's
But he's in the scene. He's in that scene when she goes to visit him. That's who she
Yes.
visits.
yeah.
But Drew's point is that's the only time, and how
Right.
come
So
he
what I
doesn't
was
come
gonna
back at the
say
end?
is, it doesn't even explain why he's there exactly. Like, I guess because maybe they explained it and I missed it. Is it because he was just so upset with how everything went that he's like become?
Well,
I mean, why is he in this
that's
home?
my whole point about why this movie feels choppy.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of times where I felt like I had missed something, and no, it's just that it's just going to keep rocketing along.
Yes.
And either you're familiar enough with the source material that you can fill in the blanks, or you just accept it on its own terms. And I'm sorry, but like, first of all, it's distracting that they had such if they're going to minimize if this is a minimal character in this, it's a distracting to get such a recognizable actor.
Yeah, I agree that
Yeah.
he would have been great to show up in the hospital. That would have been a great.
Yeah,
place
he's
for him.
great. Part of it is just is the disillusionment with, and also the project is shut down. Like, you don't need him if the project's not really, the project's changed, right? That original project was not there, and there's reasons for it shutting down and stuff too that again we don't get. So
They are definitely following a theory that, because I've heard, thousands of conversations where people like, you need to explain everything, and then you got creatives who are like, man, these executives come in and say you got to explain everything. This movie is definitely going by the theory that you can make a passing reference to something and the audience will
Yeah.
just go, well, I guess that
But
makes
it's
sense.
not
You know,
even that. It's like they didn't need. They didn't need to have him be in a home. She could have gone to see him at his house. Like, why is he in this
oh, he's in a home
home?
because he's old, I think. But
But
really, I don't
why?
know.
Why they didn't need to be is my point. He could have
Yeah,
been
no.
in. She could have gone to see him in his house and been like, "Hey, we could use your help." Then when he says you need to destroy that child, he would have that would have made him a great like antagonist. Basically, like whenever you're in that hospital scene, you could think, okay, she's free, and then he shows up
Yes.
with its intention of destroying her because Gloria Reuben doesn't want to destroy her. She wants to keep her there, and so maybe like she kills Gloria Reuben and she's free, and then he shows up to kill her. I mean, all of that. It could have been really interesting, but you're right.
You've
They
just made
underused
the
it.
movie 1,000 times better
Yeah, this is
right
this.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
different, but yeah.
like I and again, that's why I felt this movie, like I was so frustrated by this movie, because I feel like whether I'm right or not, it just felt like there was a lot on the cutting room floor. And to your point, Jason, like they kept saying, you know, like I'm fine with a movie that's the show and not tell. Like I'm not a stupid person, you know. I can deal with a movie that, you know, wants you to connect the dots on your own. There are no dots in this
Right.
movie. It just like bounces around, and I don't know. Like
Yep.
it just bugs me.
No, I understand. Okay. By the way, I wonder if, remember how I said this felt like a 1990s Stephen King movie? I wonder if it had come out then, if we were more forgiving of choppy movies then. I think the answer, by the way, is no. I believe that not much has changed really as far as when you can tell the a story's being told
I mean,
well versus
I
being told
like
poorly.
enjoying stuff. I definitely have nostalgia goggles about things, you know. But
But the
this
example that I gave, Dr. Moreau, and another one would be the 1998 Avengers. Those are two movies that clearly, when you're watching them, you feel unmoored from the narrative thrust because the film keeps like just chopping. Like you really get the impression that the scene you're in has suddenly ended and suddenly you're somewhere else. And you go, good God, they must have run out of movie or run out of money and they weren't able to finish filming this and they just clapped this together as well as they could and they put it into the theaters. This isn't quite that. All right, so where we are in the situation at the beginning of this movie, you've got the two parents who both have psychic powers. The dad, and they are on the run. We're going to get flashbacks later about why they're on the run, but they're on the run. And so they've adopted like some, you know, they don't use cell phones, they don't use the internet because they presume that the powers that be are going to be looking for them. And Zac Efron, the dad, he makes money as a life coach using his psychic powers to influence people to make good decisions. So we
yeah.
see him. He
He
charges
pushes
$75 to help
he
somebody
pushes
not
people, quote
smoke.
unquote,
Right.
and it's like like a speed hypnosis thing.
But it's actually starting to hurt him. He whenever he uses his powers, he's starting to bleed through the eyes. And Gloria Reuben, who later, you know, who will show up in a little bit, she will explain later that it's because it's just very dangerous to him. He needs to stop using his power. That's fascinating because these are not mutants. That like Charlie is basically like Pyro, who also winds up with a whole bunch of in the X-Men, who winds up with a bunch of like cop cars in front of the house, right? But they're not like, well, Charlie might be a mutant. I mean, I don't really like the powers
Yeah,
that the parents have,
she probably is because she got her
right?
powers
It's part of
through
her
birth.
DNA, right?
Right.
Whereas the parents, they got their powers through this government experiment. So in theory, they're not.
Although it is insinuated that they had, especially with the Zac Efron character, that he had some kind of psychic abilities even before the
Yeah.
experiment, that they just were enhanced by the experiment.
Right. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah,
Because
the
they
idea is
do.
you get people who are conducive to whatever the experiment's going to do to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Because that was part of the, like you're talking about the opening credits. That was part of the thing, was that they interviewed them and they're like, has anything weird ever happened to you? And he's like, well, I saw my parents die in a car accident. And they're like, okay, but I mean like supernatural. And he's like, I saw it a week before it happened.
Yeah,
So yeah. So
yeah.
he definitely has the psychic thing going.
That is a good bit of dialogue actually in the opening credits.
Yeah, I
No
like
less, as we
I
mentioned. That
like,
was
I
good.
mean, I literally like pretty much every single thing that about Zac Efron and about Sydney Lemmon and the kid Ryan, Charlie. Ryan's the girl's name. And I like all of their family stuff. I just think it's interesting. I enjoyed all of it. So that was part of the reason why I came away with a positive.
So you
feeling
would have
about
been happy, in other words, with a much longer series of just this family on the run, using their psychic
Well,
powers.
maybe, but I feel like there's stuff that was missing. I feel like there were some things that just went too long that
Mhm.
could have been shortened, and then they could have added in stuff about the other people who are being kind of, and I guess when you talk about it being a series, what popped into my head is Stranger Things, which is
Yeah.
this idea where, you see where 11 had been locked up and there's all these other people who've also been locked
That's
up and you
right.
start to meet them.
Super good
This
point.
is what I'm talking about. And you're right that maybe as a series, you'd have that opportunity, but even here, you could have cut some stuff and then given us more about the rest of the community of people who were experimented on.
The thrust of the plot begins when, the family's been living here and doing okay in their sort of nice house and whatever nice Canadian neighborhood they're in. And then things start to go bad because Charlie is being bullied by these
I mean,
more.
bullied kind of like they're just kind of like, it's the kind of bullying that kids do, which is like, oh,
I
you're
I
so weird,
I
you're a
guess, but
freak.
it's a Stephen King flavor of snotty little kid that just deserves to be like, oh boy, he specializes in these of kids that you really just want to punch as a kid. As an adult, you're completely
As an adult, you want your
powerless.
kid to punch them.
Right. I mean, there it is a Stephen King trope that kids are like demons to one another. And it happens here too. And the moment the teacher is turning the back, the kid's going, "Boy, you're so weird. You're a loser." And so, her psychic, I get mad and things catch fire powers start coming out. And so that, the powers happen. She sets fire at the school. That gets her in trouble, and that raises the flag basically for the government organization that's been looking for her. And that moves us into the next part of the movie.
And man, what kind of spy software do they have that any place where there's suddenly a fire, they're going to be like looking at that? I mean, like, what? Somebody lights their fireplace, or are they like, oh, is that? I mean,
That's a
I
really
have to wonder
good
what this.
question.
Unless they were already kind of onto her, like they thought that was where they were, and then they're like, yeah, now we're confirmed. I don't know, but that was another thing I would have liked to have had explained: is how did you come to see this? Maybe like I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. I would imagine that, I can make up all kinds of things, but it's all made up. That it's totally made
Well, it
up.
would make sense if it was like, okay, we go anytime there's a weird fire that has to do with a kid,
I would say
but
they probably have a rubric of
some
stuff that has to be like, is it two parents and a kid? Is there
yeah.
blah
I
blah blah.
I'm just
I
saying they
kind
seem
of
to have some good technology.
it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit far fetched, but I kind of get the idea that in general, also because the parents are like, hey, have we been here too long? We should have been
Yeah.
moving around a little bit more. I think that the idea is they've cast a really wide net of
Mm.
security. That's the impression. I think that's what we're supposed to glean. Is we think they're around here. Let's keep our surveillance technology hot in this general area,
Hmm.
and then they keep going over that.
Or yeah,
And
or maybe they just
that's
have
what I
access to all the satellites. So when they hear,
yeah.
like when they find out that there's been a fire at an elementary school, they're like, hey, let's take a look at it and see what happened. I don't
Right.
know. But anyway, that's just it's a little odd. But yeah, but it's really scary, the idea that these people, it's always the case on anything where the people can't stay in one place or
Absolutely.
like be caught.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I just want to point out it is a thing that Stephen King has played with many times in different stories, where the kid is young, something upsetting happens, they display paranormal abilities, everybody reacts. That is something that clearly means a lot to Stephen King. And so he plays with that over and over again. And this one, yes, they immediately it's like, oh, pack your bags, we're heading out. And that's great.
And by the way, the scene in the bathroom, because we're talking about is the kid bullies her, so she goes off. She's upset. She goes to the bathroom. She's been really good about controlling it. Her father's taught her how to just use the tools that people use when they're having like anxiety and panic attacks, where it's like, what 5 things do you see, what 4 things do you hear, whatever. And so she's gotten really good at it. But in this case, she's just not able to. So she runs to the bathroom and she tries to aim her heat into the water, so the water's all steaming. And then she doesn't feel like she can do that, so she goes into a stall, and the teacher follows her in, and she blows up, like this fireball comes out of the stall, and then the teacher's like, "Holy crap!" or "Holy shit!" I think she actually says. And then she's,
Yeah.
and that's when like now they're like, "Okay, we can't stay here anymore because you've blown up part of the school."
Yes.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting though.
And that's all pretty good. And that night, it's there's a clumsy. Gosh, I hate being mean to the screenplay. There's a slightly clumsy piece of exposition to isolate the mom by herself for when the assassin that we're going to meet comes.
Not
But
at all. It's not awkward at all. Again, she loses her temper, the little girl, because her parents are
the
pissing
burn.
her off.
I'm
Her
so
father's
sorry, I
pissing
forgot
her off.
about the burn.
Yeah, so
Right.
father's pissing her off, so she goes, "I hate you," to her father, but she doesn't know how to aim the power yet, so she sets her mother on fire.
Oof.
And so
Right.
then
And we
her
find out, we see
mother,
that they are terrible, terrible, terrible burns. Like
yeah, but they don't
really,
want to go to the
really
hospital
bad.
because again, they don't want to call attention to the situation. So she's just like, "I
You're right.
just need you to leave." And then she actually starts packing. So I think the idea might be that well, no, I guess she's packing for the family because they all need to leave.
Yeah,
But it could be
they're
that
not
she wants to
abandoning one
leave.
another.
Okay. Well, anyway, the
Um,
point is she starts packing, and then yeah, we know that the organization has sent Rainbird after
yes.
them after they've brought
Well,
him out of
okay, I have.
We should talk about Rainbird and Gloria
yeah.
Reuben. Go ahead, please. Yeah, Drew.
So Rainbird gets the phone call to say that he's like quote unquote reactivated as an assassin for the shop, which is what they call the mutant factory,
Right.
basically. And he's like at their house what feels like 5 seconds later. Did he like live up the street or something? Like
Maybe.
that whole scene, which could have been really tense, was made ridiculous to me because like I couldn't stop thinking.
I have to say,
about
until
that.
you said that right now, that did not even occur to me.
Well, and
bothered
again,
me
that means
so much.
it means the technology is even better than I was thinking it was, because it means that the second the explosion happened at the school, they knew about it. They knew about it, and they were like, "Oh, this is where she is. We got to get somebody there." Because there's only, like you say, there's only like a few hours between the fire in the bathroom and this.
But
when he shows up.
where does he live? Like it just, I don't know. Like that could have easily been worked around if they had like, oh, he was already tailing them, or like
No, he
you could,
seems to be just hanging out in his like Seattle pad, looking
yeah.
at the water and stuff.
And then he's just there, and it could have been
Well, maybe
like
they have a bunch of these guys,
Well,
and they picked
it's
the one that was
also
closest.
strange because they do a cut where he's a janitor, and it sort of is like he's the janitor at the school, but he's not, because they work around like, oh, I guess that's not really true. So again, I keep wanting to guess that the idea is that they kind of know around, like, hey, be around this place, but that still doesn't explain what bugged you, Drew. Like, I'm with you, exactly.
Yeah.
But like, because that was odd to me too. But the idea, I think, was, hey, we kind of, this is the area we're pretty sure if we just monitor this area, we're good. But it doesn't make the same sense, and I don't know that.
Yes, I agree. That whole thing that's annoying about the time. But if you can get past that, it's a very poignant storyline or subplot or whatever, that the mother, because the mother has been the most accepting person. She's always, she's told the daughter she loves her unconditionally, and she always should never be scared of her. And then she's been set on fire by her own child. So now she's like, okay, I need some time away from this kid right now because this is like a lot.
Well said. Okay,
Then,
I apologize for what I said about clumsy, because that was good. You're right. That's
and then true. So then they go away, and he shows up. So yes, forgetting that it's unrealistic, and I get what you're saying, Drew, that you couldn't get past
unless he's their Nightcrawler and he's teleported there.
So for whatever reason, he's there, and so now he comes in. He wants to know where the kid is. She, of course, isn't going to tell him, but he telepathically gets it out of her, and so they kind of have like a telepathic battle, basically, but she hasn't been using her skills, her telekinesis, so she's not good at it anymore, and he's much better at it, so he's able to read her mind, figure out where they are. She tries to attack him with like frames and things that she throws at him, but she's just out of practice because she's been this whole time stuffing down her power, whereas he's been using it to make a living.
Yeah, but also remember, part of the reason they pull him out of retirement is because he's not just, a trope of a tracker. He's actually got psychic abilities that
Right.
allow him to do that. So while there may be a time difference of him getting there, depending on, we don't know how long it takes to drive or whatever to wherever they're at. Specifically, they're like, you use your psychic abilities and find them.
Find them and then figure it out.
And
Yeah. So he finds the
so
house.
he's able to get there quicker regardless because he
Right.
doesn't have to. He's like, oh, okay. Well, now that I'm starting scanning, I know to go. Like he doesn't have to go ask, like, have you seen a family around at the school? Like he, all the detective work that you might see in a different movie. If he was a different kind of assassin, he doesn't have to do any of that, right?
Right. So then we don't see where he actually kills her. I don't think.
I think you're correct about that. Yeah, he does
it's
kill
kind
her.
Of yeah, we know he kills her because she's not there anymore when the
I don't think it's a surprise. I think very well.
It's a surprise when he opens the door and she falls out. That's about it.
Sure,
but no, you're right. It's not a surprise. Then so when they come home, he grabs the little girl, and that whole thing is a little hard to believe that she doesn't immediately set him on fire. Like it just seems like that would have happened much quicker than it did. She never sets him on fire. That part I find a little far-fetched because it seems like that would be a good he would be a good target. But she hasn't. That's the whole point, is that she hasn't been learning how to use it, so she doesn't know how to target it.
And she's very clumsy with it.
Yeah.
Until she goes through a training montage in the woods after they go on the run. Right. But so they get away from Rainbird. And once again, by the way, I love this character of Rainbird. He's really striking. Visually he's striking. As really he looks really intense. He looks scary. He looks businesslike, and violent, like all your best assassins are. And it's
he's also not. Look, I love George C. Scott, but that's one of the things in the original movie that's like, why not make him not the character from the book exactly?
Right.
Like, I mean, he does what he can, but boy, is it nice to get proper casting for this character. It's just like watching that back like a few weeks ago I'd forgotten about that, and I watched it, I was like, oh wow, right. Like I love he's doing he does what he does in the role, but boy is Michael Greyeyes such a better choice for this character.
He's great, and I love his name, Michael Greyeyes. That's such a great name.
He also gets really cool. He gets the best line in the whole movie, actually, in my opinion, when I talk about like dialogue, is when she talks about how he has psychic power too. He's like, oh well, did you think that they just started with pretty white co-eds? No, they started with the guinea pig.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which
so we've actually got some white supremacy stuff in here. That's
well, it's like Tuskegee, stuff.
Yeah, right. It's very, very poignant stuff that grounds this of reality, and and that's to the movie's credit, which is why I don't want to completely eviscerate it from top to bottom. So I've been biting my tongue at times during this conversation.
No, understood. Okay, so now we enter into the part of the movie that is where they go on the run, and you have, but it's there are not a lot of adventures on the run. There's this thing that I know that Tony would be very sensitive to, which is where they kill a cat.
And then have to put the cat, burn it more, put it out of its misery.
Which is all awful.
I mean, it's no matter what animal it is, that's just, I don't know.
It's very unpleasant. It's super duper unpleasant, is what it is.
Just not and that's the other thing is it's supposed to frame this as learning experience. Like, hey, you have to be careful around living creatures, but she already kind of knows that, and then putting that burden on her.
Yeah. But what he's saying in there is that you have to be deliberate. And you can't react. So I think that was the idea. It wasn't that you need to be careful with living creatures. It was that you need to learn to focus it and not be reactive.
Right. But that affects creatures. Like if you react to just like, oh, I'm scared, and you set a tree on fire. That's not the same of hey, stray cat, let's burn it. But the whole sequence of that, just, I don't know.
No, I agree. It's
again, it feels less like, oh, darker. I mean, what would people? Is it because the cat is gonna, that's fine. Cats scratch sometimes, right? Especially like
Right.
stray cats. You don't know what a cat's gonna do. Would we feel the same if it was like, hey, she reached her hand out and somebody's, pet, poodle who was wandering around, and she sets that on fire? Is that okay?
Well,
As well,
my
like,
main thing is,
like, I don't know. I think that whole thing is
I'm
just like,
I'm okay with
please.
killing all the fake animals. Like
I don't think
I don't care.
so Tony, I don't think that it was intended to be okay, but I agree with you that it feels sort of false. And the false piece to me is that Charlie, as presented, is not that much of a fly off the handle kid. I mean, honestly, but like
No,
she
but she gets. I mean, the fact is that it's her. She's losing. The idea is that as she gets older, she's losing control of the power. So she had the control before, where she wasn't even doing it at all. Then at the school, she has enough control not to set the bully on fire, but not to set the school on fire. Then now she's losing control because she doesn't have the ability not to set the cat on fire, and she's actually crying hysterically when he's telling her, "You got to
It's
put out
also
the drink." So I think it's the idea is that she's losing her control.
it's also strange to spend your gore effects budget on the cat
Well,
that's
the
been
cat
decimated as opposed to the
scene.
humans. Like
I'm
they cut
playing
away a
devil's
lot from
advocate.
that.
I'm playing devil's advocate because I don't think this is a very good movie. The cat scene is the whole purpose of it is that we have a repeat of it with a human being later on when she kills the agent from the shop by burning him alive, which, like, to your point, Tony, definitely falls into the nastier, like, they're not beating around the bush on how it would feel to be burnt like that. And to the point where I question Zac Efron's parenting, when he's saying, oh well, if you hurt something you have to put it out of its misery. And it's like, by continuing to burn them to death, can't you just, I don't know, hit them in the head with a rock or something, like shoot
yeah,
them?
good
Like,
point.
that would be more merciful than finishing burning them.
Yeah, I guess
Yep.
it's, you need her to control it enough to make it quick.
Yeah, that's what, because the
right.
next line that he says is, you need to be deliberate, not reactive. So his thing was, he's going to use this as not a teaching lesson of if you burn something, burn it all the way, but rather focus so that you're actually doing it on purpose and not reactive. I mean, yeah, it's a horror scene. It is. It's awful.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
So
nothing
there's
else to say
that.
about it.
So they're on the road. That happens, and then normally in a sequence like this, there'd be a lot more. There'd be like stealing clothes and taking pies off of the place where they're cooling outside of windows and all this stuff. But no, they hitch a ride with
So you wanted this to be more like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? God.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with the psychic powers.
Or Brother, Where Art Thou meets the X-Men. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, I would watch that movie.
So they hook up with this older gentleman who gives them a ride and then invites them to his farm, and this is a very strange character. And when they wind up at his house, and now I've
It's
forgotten the
called
name of the actor.
Irv. John
Irv.
Beasley is the name
Okay,
of the
John
actor.
Beasley.
But
So
Irv is the character.
John Beasley as Irv. This is an older black actor with a white beard, older gentleman. Seems very super sweet. He takes them to their house. Zac Efron uses some of his psychic con artistry to like convince the guy to give them a ride. They get to the farm, and then I'm watching it and I'm feeling super duper unnerved because I'm like, Irv does not seem trustworthy to me. I mean, there's something weird about this guy, or well, who knows? Maybe he's weird, maybe he's just old.
Yeah, that was a strange. That whole, again, that's
There's-
one of the areas where I think they could have had a lot less. Like they could have
Yeah.
cut it down a lot, because they did spend so much time with him that it felt like he was going to become a problem. And he
Yeah.
does become a problem in that he calls the cops, but that could have happened within seconds. I mean, it didn't need to happen. It took a long time with that. And I guess part of the reason why it took a long time with it is because they need for the little girl to show more of her psychic abilities, because she's been showing her her pyrokinetic abilities, but the fact that she can communicate psychically with his not catatonic, what's the word for when you just are completely
Uh,
paralyzed? You can't even talk. Well, just I guess paralyzed. His wife is not communicative. She's, basically in a vegetative state. And so the little girl is able to understand her telepathically
mm.
and then tells Irv after he's called the police, she forgives you for the accident and, all this other stuff that there's no way she could know. And so then he feels bad about having called the police. But all of that I feel like could have gone quicker and maybe I don't know if it needed to be there or not.
It's
I guess it has a
spooky.
function.
Tony, were you going to
Yeah.
say something about this farm
Yeah, I
sequence?
mean this is also a darker departure. The guilt of the accident and having someone locked in the room that she discovers, all that, and the way it also plays out where he calls the cops and everything, like all of that stuff is also like I said, a darker departure from
Really?
I just
So this
felt,
is not
yeah,
in the 84
it's
version.
this is a way different
Mm.
beast in this movie, and
Okay.
that's again why I think they're kind of leaning into given the production company, leaning into horror is something not unexpected, but I think it's that whole grind of does every bit of it have to be that? And that's kind of what I think King as a novelist is pretty good at,
hmm
giving things room to breathe. And I think in the service of keeping a movie going and kind of keeping it the feel of it, they don't maybe necessarily allow things to breathe as much or to have those moments of just like, okay, now we're here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's another part. That's part of what kept me saying, like, I feel like it's a little bit more mean spirited, and by no means am I saying that the original movie, the 80s movie is sacrosanct, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not the best adaptation per se. It's decent. It's an okay movie, but the way things are changed, just this didn't work as well for me,
Mm.
knowing kind of how it could be. Even though, again, like I like the idea of her learning the power. I think the sequence itself is not bad, but definitely I would have benefited from not knowing what I know about novel and the previous movie.
Yeah.
And again, the way that Rainbird does his work coming up, at the end of this sequence, really is it had me really not being having a hard time suspending my disbelief at the end.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Yeah, because now Rainbird is a true badass at this point. He's
Yeah.
like the police have been summoned because the government agents have put out an all points bulletin to the police to be on the lookout for our runaway psychics. And so
Well,
old Irv calls the police. He realizes they're nice people. They made a mistake, but it doesn't matter. Police show up, and then Rainbird, using a sniper rifle, shoots everybody.
Right.
yeah,
And
he goes rogue for sure.
yeah,
Well, and then it is interesting that we have the agents that show up have this technology that prevents them from being
yes,
pushed
yeah.
and stuff like that. So there's some interesting new bits to it, but again, they don't ever really do that again. So
Oh,
they
well,
certainly don't do it
Yeah,
at
they
the
did it in the
compound.
hospital because that's what Gloria Reuben has that as well at the
Yeah,
hospital.
but it's just, I don't know. It
Yeah,
doesn't go as
Rainbird
far as it could go eventually.
Rainbird
But
shoots all the police. Then all the men in black show up, and they
Yeah,
take
yeah.
they take Zac Efron hostage while Charlie gets away. And
And Zach tells her to run. He uses his push abilities on Rainbird, who does not have protection, and he like basically like uses the last bit of strength he has to make it so that Rainbird can't see where she runs off to.
right,
And then she goes into the woods to go learn her craft better. But
that part
yeah,
was
I
cool,
think
actually. Like the
yeah,
part where he was masking her and how
yeah,
that played out. That was
yeah.
actually pretty cool.
yeah,
All
I
of
agree.
that, and then the fact that Rainbird does kind of go off and like kill everybody when he's not supposed to is why I guess they decide to lock him up, which again is then why he decides he's like, screw these people because they locked him up. So he's like,
Right.
I was free, you called me out here, now you locked me up. I mean, fuck all y'all, So I think that's I don't
A
think that was
good point,
inconsistent.
actually. Let's attack Rainbird in a sec. Like attack the problem of like Rainbird's heel turn.
Yeah, I didn't
Because
have a problem with it at all.
basically what happens here, Zac Efron's being held by Gloria Reuben, and who is she's the cigarette smoking man of this
the
particular.
new leader. Yeah.
Yeah, and they know that she's going, and so Charlie goes basically out through. Basically, she's going to go rescue her dad, and so we have a series of scenes where she gets a bicycle, she gets a jacket by taking down some asshole kids, yet more Stephen King jerk kids, and she goes into the woods and starts practicing with her mutant power like Captain America in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then she comes out and just sort of marches, I mean, like an anime character towards the government installation. And this is my favorite sequence because I really love, and truly, I love any of these things where Stephen King has one of his angry teenage girls just sort of go on a slow walking rampage. It's just one of my favorite cliches of the Stephen King universe is this thing where the woman's had a damn enough and she just blows up everybody that she runs into. I love it.
Well, in this case,
Um,
it's a kid. I don't know. I don't think she's a teenager, but
true.
yeah, no, that was crazy. And then, like I say, you missed the part, Jason, where she's in the car with the agent and she wants
Mm.
to get
To get
access
the
to
key
the
card.
building
Yeah.
to get the key card, and she's like, "Do you have a gun?" He says, "No," or whatever. And so then he produces a gun and she sets him on fire. So that's when you realize she has full power now. Like she's very
Yeah.
very capable of focusing her because now she didn't blow up the car; she just blows up the dude
Yeah.
before she goes inside. So that's when you kind of see it start.
It's
Um,
it's so interesting to think like the nature of the universe that your story is taking place in changes everything. Like in other words, the Human Torch in Marvel Comics is a fun character, right? And he's goofy and he fights with Ben Grimm and everything. And he has much the same power that this kid does, but because it's a Stan Lee universe and not a Stephen King universe, it just doesn't work that way. It's interesting to me how these same
Well,
elements
it's
can.
it's
but
it, it's the difference in tone, but also genre,
Yeah.
because even though
mm,
they play with the superhero thing, like ultimately this is
Yes.
there to shock, and burning in reality the ability to create fire and burn people would probably be more like this.
but
Yeah.
I disagree, Jason, that it's different from the MCU because it might be different from that one character, but this is exactly what happens with both Wanda and Magneto. Where it's like Magneto just goes nuts and starts killing, like
No, that's true.
he
Yeah.
just completely, uses his powers to kind of wreak havoc. And then with Wanda, I mean, anybody who's watched the last the last movie, it's like that goes crazy too. So it's just, you definitely can have somebody who's, if they haven't learned to use their power for good, can be quite a villain. It's like and be very dangerous
Well,
to the world.
but they still wouldn't show somebody horrifically burnt or show a cat
Yeah.
horrifically burnt in a Marvel movie. Like, like
Yeah.
the new Doctor
There's a different
Strange.
intent.
Yeah, the new Doctor Strange movie pushes the envelope quite a bit for a Marvel a Disney produced Marvel movie, but
Mm.
like when that shop agent that she burns, like you see him and he's a crispy critter. That's pretty
Yeah.
gruesome.
Yeah, what it reminds me of actually is not MCU, but Buffy when Dark Willow skins what's his name? The
Oh yeah,
Warren.
Warren. She
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
skins him. Oh, that was horrific.
Yes.
I'll never forget that scene.
Well, and that is one of the interesting things about this movie is that, Dark Willow had to be talked down and had to have a whole philosophical conversation with Xander about am I a good guy or a bad guy? And that's not really what goes on here. This one, this is
Well, it
this.
hasn't happened yet. I feel like that if you were to make a sequel, which they will not because it's not well attended movie, but
Yeah.
if they did, I think that's what happens next. Is she has to figure out where she goes from here
Right.
because
Yeah.
she's
So
now
we should get through to the end and then do thoughts about the movie overall. But she goes to rescue her dad, and she's before and after that she's killing agents left and right. She finds Gloria Reuben and her dad behind a glass wall. Gloria Reuben's like, "Hey, can't burn me because you'll kill your dad." And the dad, shockingly, uses his push power to destroy Gloria Reuben, even though it will destroy him as well. So
Well,
he,
because he
Well,
knows he's stuck. He's like, he says, "There's no getting out of here." So he's like, "I'd rather be dead than be a prisoner of this
I mean, I'll
place."
take
And
your
like,
word for that, but
yeah, that's what he says. He goes, he
I
said
no, I
that.
know that's what he says, but like, it's a choice that the movie that the script is making.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
yeah.
the choice of having it be this, hey, kill me anyway, kill me, daughter. That's also for dark intent.
Super
And I
dark.
guess it's to raise the stakes. Again, I'm not saying this should have been a shot for shot remake or even just the same as the book. You
So
make
this
choices
doesn't
all
go like
along.
this in the '84 version. It's not.
No. Like I
Okay.
said, this is why it feels. They definitely said this is what we make, and it's gonna be dark in these ways. Those choices are choices where I'm like, wow, that is not what I mean. I guess you aren't expecting it per se, so maybe that's what they're going for. But that whole thing of like, no, you got to kill me and burn up your dad
Right.
to save yourself is just.
So I think it would be fair to say if this actually happened, Charlie would be in some damn shock after this. So she
Yeah.
would wander out. And that, I have to say, that doesn't really come across. Her
Well,
rampage.
again, that would be the sequel because we only have about 5 minutes after that happens that we see it.
Right.
So.
She sets more
Exactly.
people
Although
on
a
fire.
lot happens in that 5 minutes.
Yeah. Now the guys in the rain suits, I'm sorry, in the fire suits come out, and they do
Why they
seem to
didn't
have.
put fire suits on everybody that came out after that point is beyond me. Because those
Well,
fire suits are amazing, and everybody else who comes after first, after having seen that she has set their boss on fire, like they should all be wearing those fire suits.
and so here's the weird moment where it looks like she's run into something that she can't burn up, but Rainbird shoots them and says, "Hey, let's run away together." And
Well,
so
no, what he
He
says
does not
is
say
kill.
that.
Yeah, he
no, well,
gets on
after
his
she doesn't kill
knees.
him, yes, you're
He
right.
gets on
I
his
apologize.
knees.
This is something that absolutely 100% did. I get what they were trying to do, but
Yeah.
it did not work for me. It
Me
I'm
felt
neither.
with you.
so
It
fake.
did not work for me either.
Like
Mm-mm.
he.
I like his getting on his knees and her not killing him, showing him mercy. That part I like.
No,
But after that, I
no,
didn't like it.
no. She should have burned that fucker alive.
I kind of
Like,
agree.
Yeah,
I
she,
feel
mean-
like,
she,
yeah.
Hey, you're right. I guess since after watching you shoot the old guy and all the policemen, and me watching carnage, and then the fact you killed my mom, but maybe it's time to not kill another human.
It
Like,
doesn't
no,
really make
that
any
dude killed
sense.
her mom.
See, that made
Straight
sense
up.
to me as a choice. I didn't mind that choice because a couple reasons. Number one, she just killed her father, so she's like going, "Okay, we've both killed one of my parents."
With your
And then
weird
also,
stuff.
But
Yeah.
and then
why-
also the fact that he like gets on his knees and he's like, "Okay, you can do what you want." Now she's realizing it's a decision because all these other ones haven't been decisions; they've been self-defense basically. But this one is a decision. She's like, "Do I become the person who just murders someone because they hurt me, like the eye for an eye thing?" Or do I show mercy? Okay, I'm okay with at that moment her showing mercy. That's fine. I feel that. But after that, the whole thing with she walks off with she lets him take her away. That really bothered
Yeah,
me. I
that's
was
what
like,
I'm saying. It
no,
all leads to the same thing, and
yeah,
that's ridiculous. And
I get what they were. What I think at least the intent is that Rainbird is just another product of this corrupt
Sure.
government
Right,
thing,
right,
and
right, right.
so they're trying to say like, oh well, he's not as he's now got inspection. He's not as
Yeah.
culpable of his murders.
Yes.
But it doesn't work on screen for me. Like I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time with that character and maybe would have felt a little bit more earned. But like it
No,
like
it feels
I think
like if this were a series, it would take a full season to
Yeah.
like
for
a
them to
redemptive arc of some
Right,
sort.
right.
But
Well,
like
Yes. But I don't necessarily think it's about him earning it. I think it's more about her deciding I get to choose who I'm going to set on fire and who I'm not. And in this case, it would just be revenge. It wouldn't be all the other ones. It's because
But
it
here's
needs,
here's the thing. Like speaking as someone who has lost somebody,
Mm.
that's how you feel, and even as an adult. So if you're like a child, like you took my mom from me, like I just don't buy it. It
Yeah,
feels
but there's
fake.
plenty of people who will tell tell you, somebody, drunk driver, murderer, whatever, killed my child, and I forgave them. I chose because I didn't want to have that poison eating me.
I
I've
don't
had
buy
people
it.
tell me that to my face, and that
I don't
you know.
buy it.
Well, you don't have to buy it, but it happens, and I totally bought it. I absolutely bought it.
I'm not saying that I couldn't have bought it. The movie did not convey it well enough. It felt fake to me.
So
yeah, I mean, we're
this.
supposed to believe that if the shop is willing to just turn him over on a dime and capture him and put him in a cell, and hey, you reactivated me, but we're going to turn on you. Thanks for getting us to where we're at, but screw you as well. That's supposed to be enough for us to go, wow, I guess him realizing that. Except he's a stone cold hard ass for the whole thing.
Yeah,
he doesn't even want to be like. There's
But
never.
again, I keep coming back to the fact that it's not about him; it's about her making a choice. It's not
Then
whether
they
he
didn't.
deserves.
They
rest of
didn't
it
convey
is-
that well, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not done well, and the
Well,
rest of it
it
is all
worked.
about that, where she walks off with like that whole thing of like now they're gonna be the Hulk
Yeah,
TV
that part does
series
not work.
together. It's just
No, that part does not work for me. But the part where she makes a choice, a deliberate choice not to kill him, that works great for me. I would have made the same choice in that for writing it. But I do agree because whether he deserves to live or not is beside the point. It's only that she decides not to be the one to kill him. But yes, for them to walk off together then, or for him to carry her off, I did not like that at all. It just felt so wrong to me. I get that they're two of a kind and the only two of the kind maybe. But anybody else, like there could have been somebody else again, if we had met any other character who had been affected by this, that person could have been the one to take her under their wing. You know what I mean? Like, why did it have to be that part? Just really bothered me. So I'm with you on that part and not on the other.
The whole ending just makes me great. Like I can feel when I'm thinking about it. Like I'm
I'm with you. Drew.
I'm grinding my teeth. I hate it so much.
I'm with you.
So
thank you, Tony.
When in the 1984 version, does she run off with Rainbird?
No.
Okay, so all of this is like
No.
new stuff. How interesting. All right, well then it'll be fun to like compare and contrast. Gosh.
It's also unusual because we're going in reverse order, so this is going to be a strange experience for you, Jason.
Yeah. But that's all right. That is totally
But
fine.
we wanted to review it when it was fresh.
No, it totally makes sense because like people are talking about it now, but like we should just get the final thought.
Yes, we should. I don't think there's much left. So let's do our final thoughts, and if there's stuff that we've missed, we will come back next time around. So it's Drew, Julia, Tony, and Jason. So Drew, I mean, is there anything we've missed? What else would you like to say? What are your final thoughts?
I don't think this movie is very good. I don't think if you have made it this far in this podcast and you had not seen this movie, which we advised you against because you should make your own decisions. But if somebody were to say Drew is the new Firestarter worth your time, I would say no. Watch the original or just watch something else because this movie is not very good. And I feel bad about that because I don't think there are technical components of it that are decent. Like I think Zac Efron is good. I think the little girl is good. I think a lot of the performances are good. A lot of it is just story choices, editing choices, and but that still can bog down an otherwise passable movie. And I don't like even though I am more comfortable with going negative than Tony. I know Tony is as they say the baron of positivity, and he doesn't like going off on things. I actually this time around, like there's sometimes when I lay into a movie and I'm not gonna lie, I get joy out of it.
Sure. Okay.
I have this movie isn't so bad that I find joy in saying that it's bad. I find like this was, again, it's just a missed opportunity. This could have been a good movie.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Drew. Julia, what about you?
No, I would definitely say sure, watch it. Don't have super high expectations, but I think it's an enjoyable. I mean, there's a lot of movies that I go into and I'm like, oh my god, when's this movie gonna be over? Or how is this movie? How is that not the ending? Like why? That's not the case here. I felt like if anything, I wanted more because I wanted more development of some of these other stories. But so yeah, I disagree about that. But yeah, there were some choices that I thought were not the best choices. But my complaint is actually that there's stuff that I wanted to see that wasn't there, not that I didn't like what was there, aside from that last minute or two. So yeah, I think it's a different experience for me. And like I say, I think just the compelling relationship to the family was enough to make me really appreciate seeing it.
Excellent. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm closer to Drew. I just didn't really like the vibe that much, even though I do think that that's an interesting choice to go because the subject matter is dark. You have an uncontrollable girl who burns people alive, and so when you see
Yeah.
that, like the agent that she burns, you really see it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
but it is a little bit of a disservice if you've what I remember of the novel, and then definitely having watched the '84 version. I missed some things, and I don't ask for shot for shot remake. I think the casting is really great. Like Kurtwood Smith is amazing. Michael Greyeyes, like, finally, hey, this Native American guy playing the Native American guy. Even if the novel, is, we see things that are dated. There's bits of it that we've updated that are probably better in some ways for, like, hey, this is how we think of things now, right? And so that's I'll give it up for that. But on the whole, the vibe didn't work as well for me. Maybe that's on me. Like I said, I saw the '84 one, for like second or third time just a few weeks ago, so that was fresh in my mind. So maybe I am comparing a little bit more, but I think there's some interesting bits, but it just is clunkier than I would have liked it to be. And it is odd, like you said, though. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. Sadly, mostly in the negative, and that always sucks, because it's Firestarter, Stephen King. A lot of, again, you got this great cast. I don't want something to fail, right? Like,
The funny thing is, I often think of movies as being like the evening's entertainment. You're gonna
Sure.
have dinner, you're gonna watch a movie. Like, what really does everything have to be Schindler's List? I mean, can't some things
No,
just
I
and
didn't
I've
need
said
this
that.
to be Schindler's List,
Yeah,
Jason.
that's
No,
for
no,
sure.
I know. Well,
Dude,
no, I'm
I
not
followed
disagreeing with
this
you. I'm
up,
just
and
saying,
I
yeah.
just watched Tremors 2 last night. I did
Yeah.
not need this to be Schindler's List.
I mean, part of my recommendations is I follow, not for everyone, but I followed this up with the post-apocalyptic movie called Land of Doom, where people have ridiculous motorcycles, and it's more. Everybody looks like that they could be extras on a Judas Priest stage, I mean, so no, I don't, and I thoroughly enjoyed that movie because it's just, that's what it was. I'm not saying by no means does this have to be Schindler's List. However, the vibe, comparatively, and it's hard not to compare, and just how it all comes together, it's not a movie that I could see. I'm not gonna get it on Blu-ray.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, it's how, what I'd really like to know is, for myself, where this fits in the pantheon of Stephen King adaptations. Like, if the 1990s It is like the greatest, and then the 1981 The Shining, probably right up there with it. And then down at the bottom are probably some things that we haven't even heard of, and we're like, I can't believe that.
I mean, I would probably say this is probably more enjoyable than, I don't know, maybe like Langoliers.
Sure.
I don't know.
Like I say, yeah,
it's not as long.
Well, that's true.
It's kind of forgettable, so it's just kind of middling.
That's the thing. Again, though, I did forget, though. I will utterly agree. Along with some really great casting and actors doing the best with the material and the vibe of it, the score is untouchable.
Fantastic.
Like,
Yeah,
it's so
great.
good. Like, Carpenter's just,
it's very good. Yeah,
he's working it. It's so great. Regardless of everything, like, I would buy the CD. That's the thing, is maybe I won't get it on Blu-ray, but I definitely will pick up the soundtrack at some point, because it's good.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I would add nothing to that. We will definitely come around to discuss more of this stuff as we go back to look at Firestarter 1984 next week. This is going to be so darn fun, because I don't even care if I don't really particularly. There's this thing where, if you're down for like two movies, the two movies don't of themselves need to be great. It can be really fun just discussing the compare and contrast. So that'll be cool. All right, let's get our endorsements. which is to say, what have you been watching, listening to? Some weeks we read more and watch more, and some weeks, you're sick half the time and you don't watch anything. So I'm dying to know if anybody has anything to bring to the table. Drew, what do you have for us?
So I have kind of a lukewarm endorsement.
Hmm.
They did another round of cursed movies for the Shudder
Okay.
documentary series. I think this season has been as good as the first season, except for the very first episode, which is about the Wizard of Oz, which was excellent. Like
Okay.
real like on par with any of the stuff from the first season. The rest of it feels a bit fluffy. And I was kind of disappointed by it, but other people may feel differently. I've also, because I've been doing a lot of comic related stuff. I did Haven Con recently. I did a free comic book day event. I have a bunch of indie comics that I've been digging into. One that I am almost done with is a slice of life comic called Bonnie in Collide 9 to 5, and it's about a roller derby girl and her day job. And it's very funny, first of all, but it's also got a lot of surreal elements. For example, the main character is almost never out of her like roller skates, like, so she's even in her day job like skating around this office building. She also works with a werewolf who's just kind of there, and it's interesting. But it's by Monica Gallagher. It's also who is also a Ringo winner, and you can read the weekly version of it on her website, which is eatyourlipstick.com. But I got it in a trade paperback, and I've been really enjoying that.
That's really cool. Thank you. That was excellent. Julia, what about you?
Gosh, I can't think of anything. I was trying to think if there's anything that because everything I did was like,
Well, we started watching
school.
Strange New Worlds,
Oh
and
yeah. Well, I mean, you can probably talk about that. But yeah, that's been really good. Oh yeah, no, that's a good that's a good one because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. So Jason's like, let's watch the new Star Trek show, and I'm like, well, okay. And then I was like, this is really good. Like from the get go, it starts off just, immediately good. Like you immediately like the characters, you immediately get sucked into the story. So I think they're hitting it out of the park with that show. So yeah, that's a great one. I didn't think about that. Appreciate that. I don't know what you're going to endorse now.
maybe nothing. We'll see. Tony, what about you?
I had a few things. I didn't have a lot of time this week. It's kind of tumultuous overall. I did get to see Coven touring, which was that was a cool night on Friday the 13th. So that was pretty great. I've also been listening to a lot. There's a company called Rock Candy Records. There's a Rock Candy magazine, and Rock Candy Records puts out a lot of remastered CDs, a lot of hard rock and metal. So I actually got a bunch of their stuff, and they do a fantastic job on the liner notes. And the remastering they do is just, things sound great. And these aren't, sometimes I'm wary of remasters, but Rock Candy Records, I picked up like Overkill and Rat, and I've also gotten some White Lion. There's a band called Icon that has one of the most cyberpunk looking 80s covers ever. Lion, who did the soundtrack, the title track for the Transformers movie. I got their album, but that was super cool. I've been listening to a lot of Rock Candy Records remasters, just hard rock from, my youth and a little bit beyond. And that's been great. Like I said, I watched, not for everyone, but I watched Land of Doom after this. I was just trying to pick something. I had the projector going, and so I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep on keeping on with just random things. And that's been great. I just love running across random, especially post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. The more ridiculous vehicles, and there are many in the movie, and just for some reason we're all gonna wear lots of leather, even though in the hot sun that would probably be really uncomfortable and terrible, a terrible idea. That's the language of post-apocalypse. Also my friend Phil Mucci, and his crew at Diabolic Films have put out new graphic novels in the Dr. Dario Bava series. So that's Gringo Loco as well, but he also did a new Professor Dario Bava Orgy of the Blood Freaks. And I got those in, and it's good throwback horror comics. Both comics, Orgy of the Blood Freaks and Gringo Loco, are very cool. And he got Taglietti, the famous horror artist, to do the covers. There's even puzzles of it. And that's cool too. But yeah, that was really cool to get my package of stuff. I also got. I want to talk about packages. I got the new, and I haven't had a chance to watch it, which is a shame, but the new 4K release of Escape from New York.
See, I thought for sure you were going to talk about porn with that lead in.
Well, I mean, that would have been good. As I was saying it did feel like I should do that, but sorry to disappoint.
Oh yeah.
I was actually talking about Escape from New York.
Awesome.
But the Escape from New York, there's a super deluxe package that I didn't get that had all kinds of pins and stuff. But I got this one came with the single, like a 7-inch of the themes and stuff. So there's music from Carpenter again in this, and then I'm really looking forward to hooking up the projector and watching Escape from New York in 4K. That's just. But again, I was so busy, I didn't have a chance to do that, and I'm kind of bummed about that. But opening it up and came with a poster and everything, well worth it. It's a very cool. I don't have a turntable currently, unfortunately. As many of my friends were like, "How can you be a musician these days and not have a turntable?" And I don't have a good answer for that, other than just I don't have space to collect a lot of vinyl right now because I collect seemingly everything else. So yeah. And then that's kind of been where I'm at these days. But definitely if you're if you're listening to this and you want good horror comics, like check out what the new Dr. Dario Bava adventures, because that's super cool. And Phil and Ian and everybody are just cool people, so supporting them, like it's good when good friends are doing good things. I always like that, like when good friends are putting stuff out and it's cool, that's amazing. So yeah,
thank you very much. That was really great. I don't have anything to add because I spent the weekend. So I guess my endorsement would be StokerCon. So this past year, I joined the Horror Writers of America, and the Horror Writers of America are responsible for the Bram Stoker Award, which they give to a number of different, basically there's all these categories, and their big convention was this weekend, which was StokerCon, and there's a lot going on. I wasn't able to go to the whole convention, but I did watch a number of panels, and I was on 3 panels, and I had a real blast. And so I'm so glad that I got a chance to be there. So, yep. Check out Horror Writers of America if you're a horror writer. All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion of Firestarter. I'm gonna go listen to that song right now.
You should also check out, there's those videos where it's the video stop music. I don't think that's the name of it, but basically somebody takes out all of the video music and then adds back in basically what it would sound like if you were just on set, but without any of the music, or like the music's playing in the background. So like in the Firestarter video, they're in a tunnel, and then you hear like the subway kind of in the distance, and you hear like people like they do all the Foley work basically.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's one of the best if you're in the same way that I'm into Bill McClintock mashups.
Oh, those mashups are amazing. So for the listener, what are the search terms if they need to go see some Bill McClintock stuff? Because it is genius.
Look up Bill McClintock and his website. I did notice that they, every once in a while they'll get an algorithm will take down some of them. So the Stevie Wonder GNR one, you have to look up, not on his site anymore, but that one's one of my favorites. But Bill McClintock, like, he's a musical genius. I listen, like,
they're so good.
I understand that people won't, like, some people just aren't into mashups,
right?
But the way there's a lot of imitators. As a musician, as a person who, listens to a lot of things, like I wish there was a cover band that just did his mashups. Like Bob Marley, like the Bob Marley Billy Idol one is
Mhm.
also fantastic. And I think the one that got me into it was James Brown and Motorhead.
Mm.
But Bill McClintock in general, he is just so masterful. And not
No,
only that,
it's
but his video editing is
yes.
also good.
No,
But
they're really excellent. Yeah.
but I get all, but when you say Firestarter, I just think of how masterful this videos without music thing was. They also did the same guy also did Dancing in the Street.
Oh, really?
The
The one with Bowie and Jagger?
yeah.
Oh,
And it's
great.
just them kind of humming. And he puts it what's different
That sounds
is
great.
it's not you can see the people who kind of get it and then they're okay at it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have somebody who's just really good at Foley and really understands kind of what that, if you've ever been on a set,
Yeah.
as opposed to just seeing, the final thing, like that's what makes it for me. So I'll have to find that and post it. But the Firestarter one just always is hilarious to me because
That sounds great.
it's just like you're there on set and it breaks that illusion and it's always kind of funny.
That's wonderful. Awesome. All right. We'll be back next week with Firestarter 1984. I am so thrilled. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll talk about this on the Facebook page. Let us know if you feel like we have not been fair to Firestarter 2022. So bye. Adios.
Night.
Right.
Night.